The Mandalorian and Grogu are coming to the big screen. But let's be honest, it's been 3 years since The Mandalorian Season 3 finished airing. Here I have gathered a recap of everything important you need to know about the story from the 3 seasons of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. Ready? Let's get started. The story opens up 5 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. The New Republic controls much of the galaxy, with the occasional Imperial remnants hiding in the Outer Rim. It's against this backdrop that we follow the Mandalorian bounty hunter named Din Djarin, who goes by the nickname Mando. He's been rolling with a very strict Mandalorian clan since he was adopted by them at a very young age after being orphaned during the Clone Wars. And most importantly, he doesn't take his helmet off. Like ever. Season 1 begins with Mando accepting an under-the-table job from Grief Karga, who runs a bounty hunter guild he works for on the outpost planet of Navarro. The job is kept quiet because the anonymous client is former Imperial. Bring back a mysterious 50-year-old target alive in exchange for some Beskar steel, an extremely strong metal that comes straight from the Mandalorian homeworld. After flying his ship, the Razor Crest, to the Mark's last known location, he encounters another bounty hunter there, an IG-11 droid. They work together to find the target, and it definitely doesn't turn out to be what they expected. Baby Yoda, yes, I'm using that name for now. IG-11 has orders to kill him, but sadly for him, Mando ices him on the spot and takes Baby Yoda back to his ship alive. When Mando gets back to the Razor Crest, he finds that the Jawas have unsurprisingly stripped it for parts. They tell him that they'll give him back the parts, but only if he grabs some eggs from a big rhinoceros looking thing called a mudhorn. It gets dicey for a minute, but thanks to Baby Yoda's force powers, Mando gets to live another day. You can tell Baby Yoda already starting to grow on him by this point. Mando delivers him to his client and leaves him there. After scoring a full set of his badass armor, he sets out to complete his next job, only to be reminded of Baby Yoda. He changes his mind and goes back to save the little one. A big battle ensues and ends with Mando's Mandalorian buddies swooping in to save the day. He runs into an ex-Rebel Alliance shock trooper named Kara. Mando's approached by some villagers and hired to drive off some raiders. After he does this, he prepares to leave Baby Yoda, thinking it's a safe enough place until a bounty hunter shows up and tries to kill the little guy. Thankfully, Kara is there to blast him before he gets a shot off. Then they set off on a couple of side quests. The first takes place on good old Tatooine. Here Mando teams up with another bounty hunter, Toro Calican, who's hoping to bring in an assassin named Fennec Shand. Calican ends up shooting Fennec and double-crossing Mando, which results in his death. After that, Mando teams up with a ragtag group of mercenaries and works with them to bust a prisoner out of a New Republic prison ship, and they end up double-crossing him too. Whoa, what a surprise. It's at this point that Kara hits up Mando and asks for a truce. The client from before has taken over the town of Navarro and he needs Mando's help to free them. Assuming it's a trap, Mando hits up Kara and Quill, an Ugnard he befriends in the beginning of the show, to back him up. Guess what? Turns out it really is a trap, but Kara changes his mind after Baby Yoda saves him and helps Mando infiltrate the client's stronghold. Things go according to plan until Imperial forces show up out of nowhere, led by Moff Gideon. Gideon manages to seriously wound Mando, who is then forced to remove his helmet in order to get treated. After he's all patched up, they meet the armorer of the clan, who tells Mando that Baby Yoda is now officially part of his clan since he saved him. So she engraves his armor with their new sigil, the Mudhorn, and gives him a new jetpack as well. Oh yeah. Once they leave the sewers, they are attacked by Gideon, who is piloting a TIE fighter now. Mando, using his new jetpack, manages to take care of the fighter, and season 1 ends with the villain using a darksaber to slice his way out of the wrecked TIE fighter, and Mando heading out with Baby Yoda. In season 2, Mando is all about reuniting Baby Yoda with his own kind. The only problem is that pretty much no one has any clue where his home world might be. Mando's search brings him back to Tatooine, where there is supposedly another Mandalorian who might be able to help him. And there he is. That was easy, except not really. It's just the town marshal, Cobb Vanth, wearing a Mandalorian's armor. And it's not just anyone's armor, It's Boba Fett's armor. Mando insists he hands it over, and Vant agrees, but only if Mando helps take down a massive crate dragon, a task Mando barely survives. After he rides off with the armor, we see someone watching from the distance. As he searches for Baby Yoda's home world, he finds himself on the moon of Tras, where there are supposedly 3 fellow Mandalorians who may be able to help him out. The captain of a trawler offers to give him passage to find them, so they set out, but it's been a while since Mando got betrayed, so he gets betrayed again. The captain traps him in a cage with the intent of killing him and stealing his armor, but the Mandalorians he was seeking show up to save the day. They are led by Bo-Katan, who we all know from the Clone Wars. She's the rightful queen of the planet Mandalore. He asks Bo-Katan if she can help him, and she definitely knows a thing or two about the Jedi, but first she wants Mando to help her hijack an Imperial weapons ship. Her main goal is to retake the Mandalorian homeworld. She is also looking for Moff Gideon, since he has a darksaber, which technically belongs to her. After helping Bo-Katan, Mando heads to Corvus, a forest planet where none other than Ahsoka Tano is hanging out. Man, it was so hype watching this back in the day. I remember seeing Ahsoka for the first time in live action. It was very cool. She was one of my top characters in the Clone Wars and in Rebels. Ahsoka is able to use the Force to communicate with Baby Yoda, and this is how we finally learn his name, Grogu. We also learn how he has been able to utilize the Force all this time. He was raised at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Many masters trained him over the years. Mando wants her to train Grogu, but she refuses. However, she does agree to help him find other Jedi, in exchange for a little help freeing the nearby town from the iron grip of Imperial Magistrate Morgan Elsbeth. Mando obliges, and the fight ends with Ahsoka besting Elsbeth in a duel. We learn that Ahsoka is after Grand Admiral Thrawn, who we know from Star Wars Rebels and of course the Ahsoka spin-off. As promised, Ahsoka directs Mando to some ruins on the planet of Titan, where Grogu is able to tap into the Force and attempt to contact some fellow Jedi. But hold that thought. It's time for Boba Fett to make his official reappearance. Hell yeah, baby! And he's not alone. He's rolling with a familiar face from Season 1, Fennec. Turns out Boba found her on Tatooine and saved her, and she's basically a cyborg now. All he wants is his armor back, but their friendly exchange is interrupted by stormtroopers. As we can see, Boba is just as badass as ever, especially once he finally puts that armor back on. The stormtroopers aren't alone though. Up in orbit is Moff Gideon, and he's able to blast Mando's ship to pieces before he can do anything about it. Not only that, but some Dark Trooper droids fly in and kidnap Grogu. But good thing that Mando has plenty of friends to call upon for help at this point. Bo-Katan is especially down since she is after Gideon and really wants the darksaber back. So the team storms Gideon's ship and makes quick work of everyone who stands in their way. But where's Gideon? There he is. Ah shit, he has Grogu in handcuffs. And he's ready to troll down apparently. The two duel, and here is where we see how durable Beskar really is, as it can withstand lightsaber blows. The duel ends with Mando holding his spear to the villain's neck. When he brings Gideon to the bridge, Bo-Katan is not very pleased with Mando, as according to Mandalorian traditions, the only way to rightfully obtain a darksaber is to win it in battle. So that means it now belongs to Mando, and that he is now technically the king of Mandalore. Arriving just in time to snuff out the awkwardness is another wave of Dark Troopers. For a second, things get pretty grim, seeing as there is no way to take out all of them and get out alive at the same time. But here comes an X-Wing piloted by a hooded Jedi, and we all know that there is only one Jedi pilots an X-Wing. After he completely destroys the Dark Troopers, he reveals himself. The man, the myth, the legend. It's Luke Skywalker. Turns out he's the one who picked up on the Force signal Grogu blasted out into the universe from Titan. Before he takes Grogu to begin his Jedi training, Mando removes his helmet and lets the little guy touch his face. I'm sure we all cried there. That is the end of Season 2. Now time for the Book of Boba Fett. The spin-off follows Boba and Fennec, who have swooped in to take over Jabba the Hutt's territory on Tatooine. To keep this video from going out of rails completely, we're going to skip everything until Mando comes, which happens in episode 5. He finds the Armorer and Paz, the only two survivors of his clan. The Armorer is impressed by his new darksaber, but it feels really heavy in his hands for some reason. Also, Mando reveals that he took off his helmet here. He's kicked out of the clan right then and there. Since Gideon destroyed the Razor Crest, Mando manages manages to get his hands on a Naboo starfighter, which we all remember from episode 1. Then he flies off to see how Grogu is doing with his Jedi training, but before he can reunite with him, Ahsoka shows up and stops him. She tells him that in order for Grogu to fully embrace the Jedi lifestyle, he can't be clouding his thoughts with friendship and love. Knowing she is right, Mando leaves, but when Luke hears about Mando showing up, he lets Grogu decide. Stay with him and get his own lightsaber, or cruise the galaxy with Mando. Obviously, Grogu chooses Mando in the end and saves the day by putting a Rancor to sleep with his force powers. Season 3 begins with Mando hoping to redeem himself in the eyes of his clan. He has to seek out the living waters of Mandalore. If he can find them, his slate is officially wiped clean. Not long after he arrives, he is captured by a cyborg droid thingy, which leaves Grogu to head off and find Bo-Katan, who is still really salty about the Darksaber, but knowing he is in trouble, she heads off and saves him without a second thought. She of course manages to do this without much trouble and with the Darksaber no less. This doesn't really count as combat. After they bathe in the waters of Mandalore, they head back to Bo-Katan's castle, only for it to be blown up by Imperial forces. So they go see the armor instead, who forgives Mando for all his helmet transgressions. And since Bo-Katan also ended up in the living waters and hasn't taken the helmet off since, she too is forgiven. After a little side questing, Mando and Bo-Katan find the Mandalorians they've been looking for. There's only one problem: they won't follow her into battle unless she has a Darksaber. Mando, however, makes the point that she did technically defeat the cyborg thing in combat, which in turn defeated Mando before that, which means that the Darksaber is technically hers. Man, who wrote these rules, really? Come on. Now united, the Mandalorians fly off to Mandalore, which seems to be totally abandoned at first until a bunch of stormtroopers show up. Mando is captured and brought to Moff Gideon, who escaped from prison after being sent there at the end of season 2. Turns out the Imperial remnants are a bit more legit than we gave them credit for, and they call themselves the Shadow Council, currently awaiting the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Gideon's main goal, however, is to clone himself with the Force powers harvested from Grogu. Mandalore right now is basically a secret lair for the Imperial remnant. Gideon even has his own Beskar armor. Bo-Katan and her recon group manage to escape, except for Paz, who sacrifices himself to cover their retreat. Grogu shows up to save Mando. Earlier on, Mando and Cara found a way to turn IG-11 into a makeshift mech suit, which Grogu loved, but Mando wasn't too excited about it at the time. But now he is probably pretty happy that they did that. Liberated, Mando finds Gideon's clones and manages to destroy them. Meanwhile, Bo-Katan returns with reinforcements and they all face off against the Imperial forces. Here the Darksaber gets destroyed and things look pretty hopeless until the Mandalorians crash their ship into Gideon's secret base and incinerate him. As the flames rage, Grogu uses his force powers to protect Bo-Katan and Mando. With the Imperial forces now dead, the Mandalorians can now officially call Mandalore home again. Grogu gets adopted by Mando and becomes Din Grogu. The two return to Navarro and offer their services as freelance bounty hunters. And this is where we leave them until we see them again in theaters. Speaking of the movie, here is what we can expect when you sit down in front of the big screen in May. With the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn and the Empire beginning to reunite, there will surely be plenty of action on screen. If this recap was useful to you and you like this sort of content, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment, what's your favorite Star Wars movie, or how about a game. With that being said, I was the Lord Keeper, ciao.